We're going to start as a subcommittee so we can allow members to join us, members of the committee. If we can have sergeants call the members. Today we have 38 bills on file, 5 of which are eligible for due pass recommendations. The remaining bills are suspense items. Again, just reminding the members of the public and the witnesses to stick to the fiscal components of the legislation. Bills already have received a full policy hearing before they've arrived to appropriations. So, sergeants, if you guys please can continue to call the absent committee members. We are going to begin in file order, and welcome to Senator Anderson.
Senators, Mr. Chair, thank you. Good morning. I'm here to present SB 2, an important piece of legislation to help our veterans. President George Washington said, "How we treat our veterans today will dictate who our veterans will be tomorrow." Fortunately, Americans have heeded his advice and taken great steps to care for our men and women in uniform. One of the best services provided for our military veterans has been the establishment of congressionally chartered Veterans Halls. These Veterans Halls provide a permanent place in our communities for veterans to meet regularly with those whom have served, garnered camaraderie in friendships among peers. This social interaction has helped veterans in dealing with the lingering effects of combat. In fact, many have described these halls as one of the few places where they feel safe to talk about their most difficult wartime experiences. Many veterans also utilize these halls as a resource center where they can find help on a variety of issues, including obtaining their benefits from the VA. In addition to being vital resources for veterans, these halls also play an important role in our communities, providing a place for public meetings, memorials, and other special events. Given their nonprofit status and an enormous benefit to our community, these veterans organizations rightly deserve an exemption from certain tax requirements. In California, however, veterans halls have not been granted the full standing they deserve. The desire of Congress was to provide a permanent location for veterans to meet, and legislation is needed to clarify the intent of the law to stop the misapplication that has resulted in several veteran halls closing their doors. That's why I've partnered with the veterans organizations from up and down the state to introduce this bill. Members, I have Pete Kennedy as a witness in favor of this. I would like to thank you in advance. This bill was held in suspense last year, and it was later released because people understood the importance of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Witnesses in support of the measure.
Mr. Chairman, members, Pete Conity representing over 20 veterans groups. 1 million veterans belong to these groups, but this bill mostly affects 3 major combat veteran organizations: Veterans of Foreign Wars, the American Legion, and AMVETS. And we have narrowed the bill this year down to you have to be a 501c19, which is a veterans organization. And 4 of the current members of this committee voted for a similar measure last year, including the chair. And this bill passed with no votes out of the Senate. That got caught up in the Assembly. I just received a tax bill from a small post American Legion Post in Santa Ana. Their annual taxes are $10,000. This is for a small post, an old building. They have declining membership, and this is an example of what we're trying to correct. Thank you very much.
Next witness. Other additional witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition of the measure? Finance.
Jacqueline Wong Hernandez with the Department of Finance. We're opposed to this measure as we estimate this bill will create annual Prop 98 general fund costs of approximately $288,000 and is not supported in the governor's budget.
Thank you. Senator Anderson, would you like to close?
I would. We owe a great deal to our brave men and women in uniform, ensuring a place in their communities to recreate and acclimate back into civilian life is a vital component to recognizing the sacrifice and appreciating the duties of these men and women. I would just like to say that for many of these posts, they're not profit centers. So there's a big difference between Elks Lodges and Veterans Halls. And what's happened is they've been treated as if they're the same. But one was chartered through Congress, and in many instances, they pay $1 a year for that rent because we want to ensure that they're open and they're available in our community. But at the same time, they're being hit with these huge tax bills. And that's a huge bill when you consider that they're not running a business. They're simply providing some food and drinks in a meeting place for our veterans. And Mr. Chair, members, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration. And I hope we have a very similar outcome as we did last year. Thank you.
I can't promise anything, but thank you for being here. Without objection, the bill will move to suspense. Thank you. Next.
Can you do that?
Oh, we can't? Okay. The bill meets the criteria for the suspense file. Once we have a full committee, we will move that bill to suspense. Senator Fuller. Welcome. It's always great to see you.
Thank you. Well, good morning, Mr. Chair and members.
Senator Fuller, before we begin, we have enough members to establish a quorum. Let's get a quorum established. Secretary, please call the roll.
Laura?
Here.
Laura here. Bates? Bates here. Bell? Bell here. Hill? Hill here. Leyva? Mendoza? Nielsen?
We have a quorum. Senator Fuller, please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present SB 111 to you here today. It is my understanding that this bill is the candidate for the suspense file. But being the issue SB 111 addresses is so important to me, I wish to present the bill to the committee this morning. This bill will assist 11 public schools on or near military installations throughout California who have qualified for a Department of Defense school construction grant by helping fund their 20% match requirement. In 2010, the Department of Defense assessed the condition of 160 public schools across the United States on military bases. The schools were then ranked with the most seriously deficient schools in terms of building repairs, ranked at the top. Between 2011 and 2013, Congress provided the Office of Economic Adjustment $770 million in funding to address these repairs, renovations, and construction needs of those schools identified on the Department of Defense's 2010 list. California has 28 public schools on this list, more than any other state. 11 of those 28 public schools are currently eligible to receive roughly $240 million to repair and renovate these facilities. In order to access this federal grant, eligible schools are required to provide a 20% match of the estimated cost. Due to fiscal challenges, these schools need assistance with their 20% match before they can begin fixing these repairs. The military installations these schools are located near do not generate property tax revenue for the local school districts, and they serve highly transient populations of children who often move from one school to another as their parents are reassigned. I have a witness with me, and I welcome any questions from the committee members.
Thank you, Senator. Witnesses in support of the measure.
Yes, I'm Caitlin Gavlik. I'm the superintendent at Travis Unified School District, and I support the measure.
Great. Any additional witnesses in support? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members, Randall Friedman on behalf of Admiral Large, Navy Region Southwest, and also the Marines. I just wanted to make the point that I think the perception is the students on these schools are military students. That's not always the case. In the China Lake District, for example, half the students are civilians having nothing to do with the state, and there's a lot of minority populations and special populations. So we support this bill not only for the military families, but it's good for the communities that we work with. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Sylvia Solis-Shaw on behalf of the Board of Supervisors of Kern County in support. Thank you.
Additional witnesses in support, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members, Pete Connie, representing the 20 veterans groups. We're in strong support. We keep saying we don't want to close military bases because of the economic impact. Well, these are the things we do to make sure that the bases stay here in California. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses to support. Witnesses in opposition to the measure. Finance.
We would note that this bill would result in costs of $61 million general fund, which are not supported in the governor's budget.
Thank you. Senator Fuller, would you like to close?
I have a question.
Oh, what? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Senator Fuller, we struggled as a county, being a donor county, and I know my time in the Assembly, we struggled with the issue of being a donor state. And my concern on this, if you'd elaborate a little more on the dollar-for-dollar exchange that we have, what kind of dollars we're leveraging in terms of this bill going through.
Thank you.
Federal dollars.
Yeah, we have the opportunity to address these repairs for a fraction of the cost. California will receive $4 for every $1 they invest in these 11 public schools. And ultimately, the repairs are quite drastic. If they've all been identified, the schools don't get to decide. It's already listed out exactly what repairs they would have. There are things like plumbing, fire alarms, things like that, very basic kinds of things that the state of California will undoubtedly have to pay for eventually. So it seems like we need to do this. And the money it could go away in a sequester. It is not in a fund that will stay necessarily. Other states have been draining it down, and they're now saying that if California doesn't come up with their match, that they will take more or less, once they go by us, they will not come back and give us the opportunity to pick those funds up later. So it's really critical, I think, and we're happy to work with others in order to make this funding source work for everyone. We believe that it can easily be done.
Well, my concern is that if we don't do it now, going into the future, it could be way more expensive. And if we don't use the dollars, it's use it or lose it. So this is a great investment. It is expensive, but less so, I think, in the short term than it would be in the long term. So I'm very, very supportive. And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fuller. We'll take that as your close. And any additional comments or questions from the committee? Without objection, we'll move that bill to suspense. Thank you, Senator Fuller.
Thank you for your time this morning, members. Thank you.
Oh, yes, and just to note that SB 2 for Senator Anderson will be going to the suspense file now that we have a quorum. Next, we have Senator Leno. Welcome. Senator, my understanding is you have your way presentation on SB 614.
Pure counseling bill, yes.
And you are going to present on, let's start with SB 140.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So in accordance with the recommendations of the Department of Public Health that we protect minors and the general public from traditional tobacco products, and we should extend this to e-cigarettes, that's exactly what this bill does. And it's been crafted to protect public health along the lines of recommendations of the American Cancer Society, the Heart Association, Lung Association, California Medical Association, and the FDA. By including e-cigarettes within the existing tobacco products definition, the current tobacco enforcement and licensing schemes can be applied, and we think that will be of a savings to the state. The Department of Public Health's division overseeing these operations can draw from existing federal funding to implement these programs, and expanding the definition of tobacco products to include e-cigarettes, and expanding the definition of smoking to ensure it captures the concept of vaping, which was a suggestion by the Attorney General's office. We allow buildings and parks to keep the very same no smoking signs that they already have up. So again, saving any additional costs. As the analysis points out, there is concern from the Board of Equalization. We've been working with them, and we have presented amendments to the committee today that allows the BOE to charge a separate one-time fee to tobacco retailers selling e-cigarettes, and this special fee will remain only until e-cigarettes would be taxed as other tobacco products. And with this amendment, we're hopeful that when the BOE meets to take an official support at its meeting tomorrow, we hope they will take an official support position. So just to conclude, 169 cities and counties in California already regulate e-cigarettes as tobacco products, and we think it's time for the state to take action itself. So we have Tim Gibbs with the American Cancer Society and Callie Hant from the American Heart Association.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So Tim Gibbs, the Center said, a new study out by the CDC has shown that nationally the usage of e-cigarettes amongst young people has tripled in just 1 year. We've gone from 600,000 high school students using e-cigarettes in 2013 to around 2 million in 2014. There's evidence to suggest that once a young person smokes an e-cigarette, they're more likely to smoke traditional cigarettes than someone who smoked neither. We're looking at an entire new generation lured into a lifetime of tobacco addiction using a new technology, but the same old tricks by the tobacco companies. E-cigarettes have been described as training wheels for cigarettes. Comprehensive tobacco control strategies in California have saved more than 1 million lives and more than $1.34 billion in the last 25 years. This new pathway to tobacco addiction threatens to undermine the great progress California has made in tackling tobacco use. The explosion in popularity of e-cigarettes amongst children should be a flashing red light that we're facing a serious problem. So not only will this bill ensure that youth avoid a lifetime of addiction, but it does so in the most economical way by treating them as a tobacco product. We urge your support for this critical bill.
Thank you. Next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Callie Hant on behalf of the American Heart and American Stroke Association. For decades, advocacy for tobacco control has been a priority of my organization. In partnership with major public health organizations, the association has made major strides in tobacco use prevention and cessation by prioritizing evidence-based strategies. These tobacco control efforts have cut in half the youth smoking rate from 1997 to 2007 and have saved more than 8 million lives in the past 50 years. Tobacco use and dependence is costly. The economic and direct healthcare cost to California in the most recent report was $18 billion, with $3.5 billion directly towards Medi-Cal alone. SB 140 addresses a very basic level of regulation by ensuring that these tobacco products must follow smoke-free air and youth-related tobacco protection laws. This bill ensures that these products are licensed and that the enforcement of these provisions have adequate funding to ensure our next generation is not addicted to yet another tobacco product. SB 140 does not create any new bureaucracies. By defining e-cigarettes rightfully as tobacco products, we insert them into an existing framework for enforcement, prevention, and education. This bill is pragmatic and sensible and has the backing of major public health institutions, physicians, healthcare plans, healthcare advocate groups, and organized labor. This bill has strong support because it addresses e-cigarettes in a thoughtful and meaningful way, which is consistent with recommendations from the FDA, the CDC, and even California's own public health officer with the Department of Public Health. E-cigarettes are tobacco products, that much is clear. What California must now do is ensure a basic level of regulation exists in order to ensure youth are protected from a potential lifetime of nicotine addiction. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness.
John Lovell on behalf of the California Narcotic Officers Association and the California College and University Police Chiefs Association. This is a good sense bill. We commend the author for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support, if you can state your name.
Amber King with the Association of California Healthcare Districts in support.
Sylvia Solis-Shaw on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco and the Office of Mayor Ed Lee in strong support. We believe that this will complement efforts at the local level. And I'm also here in support on behalf of Los Angeles City Attorney Mike Fuhrer. Thank you.
David Jones on behalf of the City of San Marcos in strong support.
Kat DeBerg with the Health Officers Association of California in support.
Lindsay Freitas with the American Lung Association in California, proud co-sponsor and strong support.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors in support.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support on this measure, please come forward. Witnesses in opposition. Department of Finance. Oh.
David Quintana with the Enjoy Corporation in opposition.
Viviana Becerra with Gonzalez, Quintana, and Hunter on behalf of the Smoke-Free Alternative Trade Association in strong opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance.
No file.
No file. Comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, Senator, would you like to close?
We recognize the bills go into suspense. We'll be happy to talk to you about some of these finer points, why we think federal funds can be used with costs, and that we've written the bill to contain costs as much as possible using the existing infrastructure.
Great. Thank you. Without objection, this bill will go to suspense. Next, we have Senator Leno's bill, SB 178. Senator Leno, please proceed.
So the bill very simply requires a warrant for law enforcement to be able to access our digital information, just as they need a warrant to look inside our desk drawers or our mailboxes. And given that industry needs a clear and consistent standard so that they can sustain their customers' trust, all of the California's leading technology groups are in support of the bill, and we learned on Friday that the California Chamber of Commerce supports the bill as well. We believe that the reporting requirements in this bill are generally consistent with other areas of law, so though the analysis does point out some costs, we believe that we can work with the committee as it goes to suspense to contain as much of them as possible. But again, there's already an infrastructure for warrant requirements and reporting with regard to traditional communications. This will just extend it to electronic communications.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I'm Hani Fakuri with the Electronic Frontier Foundation. We're proud to co-sponsor this very sensible piece of legislation. And to echo some of the concerns that Senator Leno mentioned about the reporting and the notification requirements, which are a major focus of this bill, both of these components are crucial aspects to ensuring that people's electronic privacy is respected in the state. And to talk about user notification very quickly, SB 178 tries to approximate how notice of law enforcement requests for data or for a law enforcement search warrant in the physical world works. So in the traditional course, police have a search warrant to search your house. They would knock on your door, they'd give you the search warrant, and you get notice. And that sort of procedure is tough to approximate in the digital world. And so SB 178 has a notice requirement, which is an attempt to approximate that. It obviously allows for delayed notification if notification ahead of time would impede law enforcement investigation. And then with respect to the reporting requirements, this would provide important oversight and transparency as to the level of requests that are being made. We understand that there are costs to this. We're happy to work with the committee to find ways to lower those costs or streamline that process, but we hope that you would consider the bill and move it forward. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Francisco Labac on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union. We also are one of the co-sponsors in support of the legislation. Obviously, protecting our private electronic information is particularly important. The Senator has been at this issue for a number of years. Again, we will work with the committee to try to minimize cost as the bill moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris McKaylee on behalf of the Civil Justice Association of California. We're in support because the measure would limit lawsuits against businesses complying with government wiretaps and search warrants. Thank you.
Additional witnesses in support of the measure.
Mr. Chairman and members, Barry Brokaw on behalf of Microsoft Corporation in support of this important bill.
Thank you. Any additional witnesses in support of this measure? Witnesses in opposition, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Corey Salzillo on behalf of the California State Sheriff's Association. We have policy concerns with the bill, but I will note for this committee's concern the two provisions of the bill regarding notice and data collection, as were mentioned by the sponsors and the author. We have a significant workload associated with those, and we're concerned about those. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in opposition to the measure. Comments or, I'm sorry, Finance.
The Department of Finance is opposed to this bill as it may result in significant cost to the state, particularly if it's found to be a mandate on local agencies. The Department of Justice indicates that the bill would have costs of $191,000 in 15-16 and $281,000 ongoing for 3.5 positions to research and notify individuals whose live conversations have been intercepted. Any local government entity reporting under the provisions of this bill could incur similar personnel and notification costs, which, if deemed a reimbursable state mandate, would have additional significant costs to the state.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the committee? Seeing and hearing none, Senator Leno, would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of my joint authors, Senator Anderson, and committee members Nielsen and Hill and others who are co-authors, and the California Chamber of Commerce, I know that we can be successful. This moves through suspense, and I thank you.
Did you say the California Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, I did.
I just want to hear it in your voice.
Happy to have their support.
Without objection, the bill will be moved to suspense.
Thank you very much.
Senator Leno. I see we have Senator McGuire. You have two items that are candidates for suspense. We'll dispense with SB 148 first.
Yes, sir.
Please proceed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and members. Good morning. I'm honored to speak on Senate Bill 148 on behalf of myself and Senator Leyva, who was a joint author, and I do want to thank her for her amazing leadership on this important issue. And as the chairperson, I do recognize this bill is a suspense candidate and look forward to working with you, sir, in your committee. Briefly, SB 148 restores the state's commitment to career technical education by appropriating $600 million to a CTE incentive grant program. It ensures funds are spent on quality, results-driven CTE programs by requiring community partnerships and rigorous accountability standards based on student outcomes. And as you all know, CTE is critical for the success of our students and our state's economy. According to the U.S. Census, almost 70% of high school graduates in California who graduate from a public high school will not go on to receive a four-year college degree. And we know that students require career, technical, and job skill programs to ensure they have the tools necessary to thrive in today's job market. 148 restores the state's previous commitment to CTE by appropriating $600 million to a metrics-driven CTE incentive grant program. And I have to say, we are at a crossroads this year, and CTE is on the verge of collapse as investment is at a historic low. $375 million that has been traditionally allocated to CTE will soon be diverted into the LCFF, the local control funding formula, at the end of this fiscal year. And currently, there is a disincentive, Mr. Chair, for districts to fund CTE. The LAO's recent surveys of school districts indicated that districts would cut CTE first. Partnership Academies, which serves our neediest and most at-risk students, was the first on the chopping block, with apprenticeships closely behind. In many cases, these programs serve the neediest kids in our public school system. And while this bill seeks to appropriate $600 million, the governor has already set aside $250 million of the $600 we are requesting for the continuance of the Career Pathways Grant. SB 148 received unanimous support from the Education Committee and has support of the California Chamber of Commerce, California Federation of Teachers, the California Teachers Association, California Manufacturers Association, California Farm Bureau, California School Employees Association, and the California Labor Federation, and many more. And SB 148 has bipartisan support and is co-authored by several Democrats and Republicans, including, as we mentioned, Senator Leyva, Senator Mendoza, Senator Bell, as well as Mr. Nielsen. So very grateful for your support. Once again, I look forward to working with you on this bill on suspense.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jeremy Smith here on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council, one of the ones that was not mentioned in the list of supporters. We are very happy to support the bill today. I take offense to that.
No, I'm so sorry. Scoring points here.
The CTE system is broken in this state. The money is not getting to the kids, and we're leaving kids behind to drift through their 20s with not knowing where they want to go because they didn't have a career tech course in high school. This takes the existing money, make sure it's used in a more transparent way so we know the money is going to the kids. We're in support. Thank you.
No witnesses in support.
Mr. Chair, members, Fred Jones on behalf of the California Business Education Association understands suspense candidate, so I'll just direct my remarks on just the dollars. As the senator mentioned, $376 million required to be spent on ROP programs will no longer be required at the end of this fiscal year, just another month away. In addition, the governor has supported in the last 2 years $250 million each year for a Career Pathway Trust Grant. You do the math, that's over $625 million each year of the last 2 years that has been spent and dedicated to career tech. All of that goes away absent a bill like SB 148. So we strongly support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Erica Hoffman on behalf of the California School Boards Association, also an organization not on the list. But for all the reasons mentioned, very much in support and would urge your aye vote when it does come off suspense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pat Whalen, Ellison Wilson Advocacy on behalf of the Southern California Regional Occupational Center, also in strong support.
Jim Ashwan, representing the California Agricultural Teachers Association, in support.
Andrea Fox, representing the California Farm Bureau Federation, in strong support.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Megan Brightwell on behalf of the California Federation of Teachers, in support.
Erin Evans-Feudum on behalf of both the California Alliance of Boys and Girls Clubs and the School Employers Association of California, both in strong support. Thank you.
Leangela Reed on behalf of the California Association of Regional Occupational Centers and Programs, as well as the Association of California School Administrators, in strong support.
Mitch Seaman with the California Labor Federation, here in strong support.
Good morning, Pamela Gibbs, representing the Los Angeles County Superintendent of Schools, in support.
Alejandro Espinosa on behalf of State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torlakson, in support.
Chris Walker on behalf of the California Association of Sheet Metal Air Conditioning Contractors, in support.
Jessica Lee, a fourth-year UC Davis Economics and Political Science major, in support of SB 148.
Thank you. Any additional witnesses support? Witnesses in opposition of the measure? Finance?
No file.
No file on this item. Members, is there any comments or questions from the committee? Senator Nielsen.
Mr. Chairman, it's a pleasure to co-author this, and I want to thank the governor. Way back in round one for Jim Nielsen and Jerry Brown, he signed ag incentive grants, and there's a little bump on that last year, and that got turned around. And not only did the governor come back out this year with the full funding of the ag incentive grants, he's expanded it, as is the case here. I will suggest that those in support, under the leadership of the author, do initiate conversations with the governor and finance to make sure that there's some reconciliation of the difference between the 250 and the 600. I will say that anything is good progress and positive steps ahead. And there are very good arguments for this. We, for a long time in California, neglected that career tech track. And understand, career tech track does not mean that these individuals are not going to go on to higher ed. That's a great misconception that harkens back many, many years. A lot of the career tech individuals are going to want to expand their horizons and their abilities and their entrepreneurship, and higher ed should be embracing these students, and that's one of the messages in this bill.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. Any additional comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, would you like to close?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I do want to thank you again and your staff for the analysis and the work. Want to thank the governor as well and Superintendent Torlakson. The governor's leadership on this issue, Superintendent Torlakson for his leadership and support. And we will be having our fourth meeting today with the Department of Finance on this very specific issue. And we do appreciate all of their time, as this is quite a busy time of year for them. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Without objection, we'll move this bill to the suspense file. Next, you have SB 685.
Thank you so much. No, thank you so much, Mr. Chair and members. And again, look forward to working with you, I would hope, on this issue. Briefly, SB 685 ensures that the state continually fosters the financial independence of our state's veterans. SB 685 is a bipartisan proposal that will help veteran service organizations close the gap of services between the Department of Veterans Affairs programs and veterans, and tackle desperately needed deferred maintenance on veteran halls across California. We are currently working with the Department of Alcohol Beverage Control to reduce the enforcement costs of this bill, and I'm confident that we're going to be able to continue working with them. And SB 685 is co-authored by Democrats and Republicans alike, and do want to say thank you to Senator Bates as well as Senator Nielsen for this support of the bill. And once again, I would be honored to work with you on this bill as it hits suspense.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Mr. Chairman, members, Pete Conity again for 20 veterans organizations. Like SB 2, which you heard earlier, what we're finding is that many of these policies and procedures and everything else the state does with veterans posts have not been updated since World War II, which was 70 years ago. As the analysis notes, this license was created during World War II and has not been updated. So, but the problem is the World War II generation has passed on, and now the current generation is struggling to keep all these veterans posts open. I will note, of the 23 complaints, mentioned in the analysis, that's out of 6,000 to 7,000 complaints. And that figure does seem high, but I'm not questioning it. So if you want to keep your veterans posts in your districts open, we have got to make changes to how we regulate and control and tax and allow them to utilize these veterans posts. This license acts as a bar to getting new membership because you have to sign in as a member every time you go visit that post, and you have to sign in your guest. This makes it difficult every day, every time you go to that post. However, we are working with ABC to reduce the cost and see what we can do to help our veterans posts. Thank you.
Thank you. Witnesses, additional witnesses in support on this item. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
No file.
Comments or questions from committee? Seeing none, Senator McGuire, would you like to close?
Would respectfully ask to be able to continue the conversation, and thank you for your consideration, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Without objection, we'll move this item to suspense. Next, I think it's Senator Block. Please come forward.